Saudi-based fighters kill civilians in Sana'a and Jawf. New Saudi air raids on Yemeni governorates. Yemeni suffering continues due to the unjust siege. Good evening and welcome to Yemen Today's News. I'm Ali Nasr al-Khamri. Minister of Foreign Affairs Hisham Sharaf has condemned the terrorist attack on a hall in the northern British city of Manchester that led to the deaths of dozens of people. In a press statement, Minister Sharaf has expressed Yemen's solidarity with the British people in confronting the phenomenon of terrorism, expressing condolences to the families of the victims and wishing speedy recovery to the wounded. The Foreign Minister reiterated Yemen's firm and principled stance rejecting terrorism in all its forms and manifestations as the greatest threat to international peace and security. He stressed the necessity of concerted efforts by the international community to eradicate the root causes of terrorism and to root out its sources. He pointed out that Yemen has been suffering for more than 2 years from the terrorism of aggression, in addition to the unjust siege imposed by the Saudi-led coalition. Yemeni students and cultural attaché in Kuala Lumpur celebrated the 27th anniversary of Yemen National Day on May 22nd. At the ceremony, the cultural attaché in Malaysia congratulated the Yemeni people on this great occasion, which the entire Yemeni people in the south and the north have achieved. He stressed that Yemen's unity came to realize the aspirations and struggles of the Yemeni people and to realize as well one of the goals of the glorious September and October revolutions. The ceremony included a number of words expressing the achievements made in the state of unity. A protest was held in Sa'da, north of Yemen, to condemn the continuous crimes of Saudi aggression against the governorate and the entire country. The protesters condemned the continuation of the aggression against Yemen for more than 2 years and the resounding silence and lack of practical actions by international community, as well as the unjust siege imposed on the country and its citizens. The protesters called for lifting the siege, which affect the financial status of citizens, and stop the war. During the protest, the local authority distributed food supplies to a number of needy and poor families, calling at the same time the merchants of the governorate to contribute in more donating for the most affected people in the society. One civilian was killed and others were injured by Saudi-based fighters' attacks on Nehem Directorate east of Sana'a governorate. Local sources in the region confirmed to Yemen Today channel that the pro-Saudi fighters shelled Bani Faraj and Qutbain area of Nehem with artillery and rockets, leaving 1 dead and 3 women injured. At the same time, Saudi warplanes launched an air raid on Ramda Junction hours after 4 air strikes on Maswara, Barran and Al-Madfoun of same directorate. In related news, 1 civilian was killed by pro-Saudi fighters' attacks in Jawf governorate northeast of Yemen. Local sources reported that the Saudi-based fighters launched attacks on Al-Butayn area of Al-Matoun district, wasting a life. It's worth mentioning that Al-Matoun district in Al-Jawf governorate is under aerial and land attacks by Saudi-led coalition warplanes and its fighters. The Saudi warplanes have re-attacked Sa'da and Hajjah governorates. In Sa'da, the enemy's jet fighters have launched 3 air raids on different areas in Al-Zahir directorate. Meanwhile, in Hajjah, the Saudi warplanes have hit 3 air strikes on Medi directorate. The continuation of the unjust siege imposed on Yemen produces suffers and miseries to citizens who are looking for lifting the siege and reopening Sana'a International Airport as a step forward to the closure of nonsense war that wastes lives and destroy infrastructures in vain. Here is a report.
The Saudi-led coalition gathered in its aggression between the unjustified war and the unjust siege on Boston Airport, in which the aggression continues for 2 years and up till now in imposing unjust blockade on the Yemeni seaport and airport. But the siege on Boston, the international Sana'a airport, represents a flagrant violation that directly endangers the citizens and threatens a humanitarian disaster due to it considers the access for the medical equipment and food. As well, this siege on Sana'a airport obstructs the patient from travel in or out Yemen, in which the public authority for civil aviation confirmed that more than 9,000 patients lost their lives because they didn't travel abroad to receive the urgent treatment such as cancer and kidney patients. This disgraceful violation urged the World Humanitarian Organization to warn upon the catastrophic effects as the result of the continued closure for Sana'a airport. The Saudi aggression caused in a humanitarian and healthy disaster in which the aggression caused in death more than 9,000 patients out of 75 patients who need to travel abroad to receive the health care, especially in cancer and kidney diseases. Not only the international organization called on to end the siege on Sana'a airport, also there are social efforts from the Yemeni people called on the international community to end siege through a foot march started from the capital Sana'a directed towards Sana'a airport in a step to make pressure on the United Nations to end the unjustified blockade on Sana'a airport. The liberty of transport and travel is guaranteed from all the international laws, either in peace or war, so we call on the international community and the United Nations to end siege as soon as possible. The siege on Boston Sana'a airport, which extended for 2 years and more, increased the suffering and misery of Yemeni people. Despite all the protest stands and marches, we find the Saudi aggression continues in its war and siege.
The efforts are exerting to fight cholera outbreak and to raise awareness among people to avoid it. A campaign was carried out by the General Authority for Water Resources in partnership with UNICEF in this regard. Here is a report.
The General Authority for Water Resources in partnership with UNICEF carried out a campaign against cholera epidemic in drinking water purification plants and water wells. Ministry of Water and Environment ordered to inspect water plants and wells. We formed 9 teams to visit all water plants, which they are 237, and water wells, which are 45. 237 drinking water plants and 44 water wells were covered by the inspection to make sure of the peace and precautionary measures that prevent the outbreak of cholera epidemic. I take samples from water tanks and wells of the citizens, then we examine it. Cholera initiates from water. We pump water out of well into big sterilized water tanks. Then we fill water vehicles and chlorine added by an official man from Water Ministry. The campaign aimed at water stations that do not meet the specifications of drinking water purification. We add chlorine to the water. In the filter, carbon pulls chlorine. Then we sterilize water with ozone.
بعدين يرجع إلى الماكينات اللي تحلي يرجع إلى داخل الخزان يعقمه بالأوزون.
The prevention of cholera spread and the treatment of health. We add chlorine to the water. In the filter, carbon pulls chlorine. Stations and wells of water would help reduce the environmental pandemic, and it would need all the efforts to get rid of such pandemic.
Ladies and gentlemen, back to today's headlines. Saudi-based fighters kill civilians in Sana'a and Al-Jawf. New Saudi raids on Yemeni government raids. Yemen suffering continues due to the unjust siege.